What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have another calculation video, this time about the upcoming sustained character Aventurine. In this video we're going to go over his kit and how to properly scale him. So if you enjoy this type of content, let me know by liking the video, leaving a comment in the comment section below, and consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. Starting off with his basic, it deals 100% of Aventurine's defense as imaginary damage, and you guys already know how much I love double stat units or units that use one stat from multiple sources. Like Aventurine, for example, uses defense for sustaining, for defense, for creating shields, and also to deal damage. So a lot of bang for your buck by stacking defense on Aventurine just by his damage scaling off defense. Moving on to his skill, regenerates 30 energy and provides all allies with a shield that can block up to 24% of Aventurine's defense plus 320, lasting for 3 turns. So the shield itself lasts for 3 turns. And it's of the unit's turns because it's something that's implanted on the unit. So the faster the unit, the faster they're going to run out of that shield, if it makes sense. Also, this shield can stack up to 200% of the current shield effect provided by this skill. So don't worry too much about the scaling of it. We're going to cover it in the second portion of the video. Moving on to his ultimate, it has 110 energy, and off the bat, when you trigger it, it gains 1 to 7 points of blind bet. Blind bet is the counter for his follow-up attack. Once you hit 7 points of blind bet, you will fire off Aventurine's follow-up attack. So his ultimate can get him a follow-up attack by itself. It can get him 6 points, 5 points, all the way to 1 point. It just depends on RNG. And then it's going to deal imaginary damage equal to 270% of Aventurine's defense to one single enemy. And it's going to inflict it with a debuff. And it's important that I underline debuff here. And that debuff, what it does is that allies that attack that enemy that has the unnerved debuff will receive increased crit damage by 15%. It's really important that I highlight that this is a debuff because obviously we just got the best DPS in the game in Acheron, and Aventurine is looking to be one of her better supports, if not her best support. But we're going to talk more about that a little bit later. And one of the reasons is because of this debuff right here that he implements with his ultimate. All right, his passive or his talent, it gives all allies that have the shield 50% effect res. This is huge because it activates everybody's broken keel, including his own. So as long as he has his own shield up, he will have broken keel active. You don't have to stack effect res or build effect res in your kit because Aventurine is going to give you 50 off the cuff. So everybody that has broken keel and Aventurine's part of your team, you don't have to worry about effect res anymore. And that's another value that he provides. And then when allies that have the shield launch a follow-up attack, he's going to gain 1 blind bet. So the more follow-up attackers you have on your team and the more follow-up attacks you launch, the more follow-up attacks he is going to launch. And also when he fires off his follow-up attack, he's going to keep stacking the shield, which we're going to segue into his first passive over here. If an ally with Aventurine shield launches a follow-up attack, Aventurine gains 1 stack towards his own follow-up attack. And then this can happen up to 3 times or per turn. And also when Aventurine fires off his own follow-up attack, he's going to provide a smaller version of his own shield to all of his allies. And then the ally with the least amount of shield is going to get twice as much shield. I'm going to explain how this works a little bit later because it's hard to see without the numbers. But when I show you the numbers, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. And then going back to the talent, the follow-up attack deals 25% of Aventurine's defense to a single enemy 7 times. It's random, so if you have multiple enemies, the 7 hits will spread around. If it's only one enemy, the 7 hits will hit the same enemy, and this will total up to 175% of Aventurine's defense if you hit all of them in the same target. All right, his second passive is when the battle starts, he's going to give all allies the same shield from his skill, which is a really beefy shield if you build them correctly. So off the cuff for 3 turns for free 99, he's going to give everybody some sustain. Essentially, that's what that means. So for the first 3 turns, you can just, if you're not getting hit, you can just spam a basic attack, gain some energy, and gain some skill points. And then the last part of his passive is for every 100 defense past 1600, Aventurine is going to increase his own crit rate by 2% up to 48% crit rate. So at 4,000 defense, which I'm going to show you how to get to 4,000 defense in this video, he's going to be giving himself 48% crit rate. Why is this important? If you run him and you stack as much defense as you can, and then the chest, you put the crit rate chest. Yeah, just by maxing this out, and then putting on a crit rate chest, you have 80% crit rate on Aventurine already. And then you already have the defense for it. So all you really need to build for is just defense, crit rate, crit damage. That's it. Do you need speed? Yeah, you may need a little bit of speed. However, you don't really need it because if you're using him in a team where, one, they're getting hit a lot, because every time their team gets hit, he's going to gain a stack of his follow-up. Also, if you run him in a follow-up attack oriented team, he's going to be firing off his own follow-up attack so many times. So your shield is always going to be replenishing itself automatically, kind of. Only in very niche emergency situations, you're going to have to trigger his skill. All right, looking at his trace stats, he gets 35% defense on his traces, 14% imaginary damage, 10% effect res. He doesn't really need it. He has a 60% effect res just by himself because he gives himself shield. He already gives himself 50% with the shield. So he's sitting at 60% effect res without even stacking any with traces, or not traces, with the relics or planar sets or whatever. All right, now his tech, whenever you activate it, whenever you hit your tech or technique button, one of three things is going to happen. He's either going to get the 24, the 36, or the 60. And what that means that he's going to get 24% defense, 36% defense, or 60% defense for the first 3 turns of the battle. And it can be re-rolled. So if you use it one time and you get the 24, you can use it more times until you get the 60 or the 36. And then this also applies to the entire team. So your whole team gets this buff for 3 turns. And then as far as his rotation goes, since I don't think he's going to be ran necessarily with a energy recharge rope, because you need as much defense as you can possibly put on him, including the defense from the rope, his rotation is going to look like basic skill, basic. The only reason I did it like this is because his shields last for 3 turns, and if you want to re-up on your shield, you can do it on turn 3. But if you don't, you can put it all the way to turn 5, because at turn 5, with 4 basics and 1 ultimate, you should be getting your ult. I mean, with 4 basics and 1 skill, you should be getting your ultimate. All right, so we're over here in Aventurine spreadsheet, and we're going to be running him in the defense set and the Bella Box set. I know that people don't really farm these, and I know that most people that are going to pull Aventurine are probably not going to farm these. However, these are the sets that give him the most defense. So, I mean, if you get lucky, oh, not lucky, because everybody gets unlucky and gets defense rolls. We've all been there. So all those defense pieces, you can probably make a good set that has a really high defense. To get him to 4,000 defense is actually not that difficult. Even by me having the both defense sets right here, I don't have any defense slotted into the Relic and Planar set. Because if you run boots, orb, rope, and a Lycon that gives him 32% defense, like universal trend of the marketplace, which is one of his best options because of a Acheron, you're already going to be sitting at 394, and this is with the 36% of his trace. If you put the 60% here, he's already at 41. So his crit rate buff is already almost maxed out with his base 36%, because this is the one that has the highest chance of happening. So, and if you get the 24, you can always re-roll out of it and get a 36 or a 60. Also, I only rolled it with 10% in subs. We all know we don't have just 10% in subs. Realistically, we had like 20% in subs. And with 20% in subs, you already cross the 4,000 mark. So, you know, like even if we put this in 10, you're still pretty close. Like your crit rate is going to be like 47 point something. Already, he's going to launch off with at least 53% defense, because we have an innate 5% crit rate, right? His base defense is 655. I didn't really compare to see if his defense is like one of the highest or not, but 655 seems like a really high defense. The Lycon 397 is the Lycon universal trend of the marketplace. This Lycon is so good on him because, for one, it gives him defense. Second, it gives him another debuff for Acheron, and given that most people, or a lot of people, are actually going to pull Aventurine to be ran alongside Acheron, because he's actually one of her best supports. He has 2 debuffs. If you count the Lycon, it has 2 debuffs. Also gives him sustain, doesn't have to use skill points. And the most important thing is that it can abuse the trend of the universal marketplace Lycon, which is one of the best supportive Lycons for any Acheron team, okay? We added the 35% in the traces, 0% of the chest, because this we're going to reserve for crit rate. The boots, it's 54% for the boots, 54% for the orb, 54% for the rope, 32 for the Lycon, 10 for subs, 36 for the tech. Now, if you want to run speed boots, right, you're going to need about 700 more defense. So how can you do this, right? So first of all, you can just re-roll for the 60, right? And now you just need 400. And then your subs are going to have to carry you to the other like 40 or the other 50. So if you can get to 50% subs and you can re-roll for your tech, then you can run the speed boost, so that way you can max out your buff. You know, if you get a little bit of speed, because a lot of people are actually going to run him with Ruan Mei as well. Ruan Mei gives him a little bit of speed, which is about 10 speed that he's going to get from Ruan Mei. If you get a couple rolls here and there, he's not going to be that slow to where he's going to be inefficient with a defense boot. So that is really, really nice. So this Lycon is probably the one that people are going to run the most on him. We're going to talk about his signature in his own Lycon video, which you guys already know that it's coming. I'm probably going to craft up a bit of a different set, see how we can make 4,000 defense work a little bit easier. Yeah, so we're already pretty close to the 4,000 mark, and we only have 10% in subs. We all know that we're going to get more than 10% in subs. It's really easy to get more than 10% in subs. But if you choose to use the speed boost and you're going to use the Bella Box set or the defense set, this is going to give you an extra 45%. It's going to make it a little easier. And then all we have to do is just find like 10% more in subs. And then we're there. Let's see, a little 25% in subs. Yeah, 25% in subs gets us to the 4,000 mark if you're running this. The good thing about this set in particular is that it ups your shield strength by 20%. So whatever we see here, actually, let's go down to the shield table because he is a sustain after all, right? Coming down here to the shield table, this is the amount of shield is going to give you with just using this skill, right? The trace is going to give you a shield for this much. And remember, if you have the lowest amount of shield in your team, you're going to be getting this much. And this happens every time he fires off a follow-up attack. So every time he shoots up a follow-up attack, you're going to be getting this amount of shield. And then he also, if you skill, which if you start the battle, one of his traits is that you get this amount of shield right off the cuff. It may not seem like much, but it can stack. And when you start stacking the shield, that's when it gets beefy, okay? Because how the shield works, every time a unit of your team or an ally in your team gets hit, he gets a stack of the follow-up attack. You have 4 teammates. If you get an AoE attack, right, you have 4 stacks right there. If you get hit with a second AoE attack, that's 8 stacks right there. So you're going to get this follow-up attack to fire off pretty frequently. And given the raise in defense that he gives you in the first few turns, your shields are probably not going to pop. So you're going to get triggered a lot of these. Also, when you actually fire off your ultimate, you can also proc another one of these. So you're always going to be refreshing your shields. And then if you just need to scale every now and then, it's okay. And then this is the max shield you can get with this amount of defense. Obviously, the higher, let's say we do 100%, right? The higher the amount of defense that you have, the higher the amount of shield. Now we're going to look at his damage potential. His damage potential is actually not that high because his multipliers aren't that high. However, if we put him on a team, right? We put him on a team, he's probably going to be running alongside Topaz, right? So Topaz gives a 50% vulnerability debuff for follow-up attack. So we're going to take this total right here, right? We're going to take the follow-up attack total, and we're going to look up the vulnerability, which is this right here, and we're going to add 50% to it because that is what she does. So follow-up attack is going to be doing 9k damage just by adding Topaz, assuming we get to 150% crit rate, which I don't think is too feasible. So let's go and bring it down to 120. We're also taking into consideration his ultimate debuff that he gets on the enemy whenever he does his ultimate. Crit damage is increased by 15% whenever he hits them. This is what the multiplier is going to look like. Obviously, if we have more, let's say a good amount is going to be 80% crit rate. This is probably going to be a lot higher, okay? Now, Ruan Mei is pretty much one of the staples for follow-up attack teams, right? Ruan Mei is going to give you 68% damage bonus and also give you some res pen. So your damage is starting to kick up a little bit over here, right? So you got like 7,000 with the basic, ultimate hits for 21k, follow-up attack hits for 20k. And remember, this is every tick of the follow-up attack is going to hit for about 3,000, and a total is going to be 20,000 damage in total. He's essentially a sustain that takes a little bit of advantage of the damage increasing debuffs that, like, for example, Ruan Mei is going to provide for you. So obviously, depending on your build and depending on how you build your Aventurine, if you have a higher crit damage, let's say you're going to bring it up to 150%, because if you build him like a DPS, but instead of attack, you build him for defense, 165 or 150 with 80 is actually pretty feasible. And a lot of people build their DPSs to upwards of 180. So having a sustain that can dish out like 30, 50k, I don't know, 26k damage, 50k damage, the follow-up attack on a single target. A lot of enemies now are single target, like the meme is single target. The actual Aventurine boss is single target for the most part. So this is 25k on the head, 26k on the head as well, and the basic hit for 10k. It's chip damage that is going to help you clear your goal, and at the same time, he is sustaining your team and giving Acheron stacks, giving your follow-up attack units more bang for their buck. So he's just an overall amazing sustained character with a little bit of DPS hybrid tucked in there somewhere. So this is definitely, if your account is focused on follow-up attackers like Topaz and Numbi, Dr. Ratio, Herda, Himiko, even Zhui Yi to a certain extent. Aventurine is probably your main support. He's probably going to be your main sustain that you want to go for because of his synergy with follow-up attack teams. They just mesh so well, and I can't wait until people start like popping out these like follow-up attack oriented teams. So this was just a preliminary calculation video for our boy Aventurine. So let me know what you guys think about him. He's looking to be a really nice sustain. Am I gonna put him above Fu Xuan? I don't really know yet. I'm gonna have to wait and see. But he's looking pretty strong. Definitely top 3 sustains in the game. In my opinion, up to this point, I haven't really like used him that much. I find him to be very easy to build. He has a lot of versatility on how you build him. You don't necessarily have to build him with crit. You can just stack full defense and that's it. Call it a day. You don't focus on the offensive side of it. He's still okay with that. You can build him like that as well. Has a lot of versatility. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And until next time, guys. See ya.